complicated. And life is complicated. And so when we picked this topic, we said teetering on the edge of work-life balance. Notice I didn't say work-life conflict, I said balance between the two. And I said, well, let me bring one of my kids in and see what they see. And so I came up here with my 7-year-old son, and I expected him to do one of two things. This was my thought. I thought he was going to focus on the desk. It has knobs that stick out, and it's the thing that you see that you said is the most clear in this. And I thought, okay, he's going to look at that. He has a desk, and he's going to focus on it. Or I thought he was going to see a bird feeder and say, why is there a bird feeder inside? And be very literal. But instead, the only thing he cared about, he said, yeah, that's a castle. But he focused on this. That's what he looked at. And I said, why? And he said, because I want to know what's there. I want to go explore it. And so he wanted to climb the steps, and he actually minded climbing the steps and going out there and exploring it. And by the way, he told me that it was a river. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a river. So we agreed. And so that's what he was looking at. And I thought, that's interesting, because it's not what I looked at. When I first saw this, I saw a desk. And so we come to this perspective differently. And as a psychology professor, I find it particularly fascinating, because for those of you who are probably all familiar with psychology, but as a definition, it's the study of the mind and behavior. So it's what we think and what we do. And the two don't always go together, but they often do. And so I wanted to approach it from that perspective. And I'm going to start off by telling a story. And I actually heard this story just a few weeks ago from a martial artist, Grant Master, who is the founder of Han-Mu-Do, which is a martial arts style. He said there was a village in Korea, that's where he's from. And in this village, there was a woman who had 2 sons. And when the sons grew up, one made his living by harvesting salt. So he would get seawater, get it evaporated, and literally harvest the salt, and that's how he made his living. The second son made his living with umbrellas. He manufactured and sold umbrellas. That's what he did for a living. And the mother started thinking about this, and she said, well, if it's sunny, then my one son's doing well, and the other son's doing bad. If it's raining, then that son's doing bad, and this other son's doing well. And she started worrying about this, and she finally made herself sick with worry. And there was a wise man who was passing by the village, and he heard this story, and he said, I got this. And so he went in, and he sat down with the mother, and she said, all right, you can only answer a yes or no. I'm going to ask you a few questions. 1, when it's sunny outside, your son does really well with the salt business, doesn't he? Yes. Does that make you happy? Yes. Right? Now when it's raining, does your other son sell more umbrellas? Yes. Do you want him to be successful, and him being successful makes you happy? Yes. So, what I hear here is you're happy all the time. And I thought, oh, it's all a matter of perspective. The classic view of work-life balance is a seesaw. So you have a pivot point in the middle, and you have 2 sides, and you have work on one side, and you have life, or family, it's called work-family most of the time, on the other side. And the two must be exactly equal, or the seesaw pivots one way or the other. And when it pivots, we have conflict, we have stress, we have all kinds of negative consequences. Think about that view. What happens though if you have this, and one side weighs more than the other, and then you move the pivot point? Can you maintain a balance? Yeah, so who says it has to be 50-50 with the same weight? We can also look at things like quality of relationships, and not just quantity of relationships. So we have weight, but we can change the pivot, and that pivot can change over time. And then, you think about, you have 2 sides, you have family, and you have work. There are more things to life than that. And we have hobbies. We have religious opportunities. We have civic organizations. We have museums we can visit. And all of these things are part of our life. And they may not be as long as we say family and work, because that's where we spend a lot of our time. But they're each little extra pivots coming off the side of the seesaw. And then it makes the balance that much more complicated, doesn't it? But also it allows us not to be focused in 2 directions, that it balances this in multiple directions. And we just have to keep that pivot point in mind. How many of us have a smartphone? How many of you bring it everywhere you go? How many of you feel lost without it? Yeah? Yeah, and you find yourself like, well, wait, where's my phone? Have you ever left your phone at home? And you're like, yes, you did it tonight. And you're wondering what's going on. Here's what I challenge you to do. There was a recent study that was done where the researcher in teaching a class had all the students pull out their phones. Normally we say, turn off your phone, put it under the desk. They said, take out your phone, turn it off, set it in front of you while you're taking notes. And then I want you to start making a hash mark every time you look at the phone and you think about checking messages, or you find yourself reaching for the phone. And it was very mindful about how something like this controls us, and it allows us to bring different aspects of our life together. I have pictures on here of my kids that I can look at while I'm at work. I can check my work email while I'm at a kid's soccer game. I'm surprised when I drop off my kids, and my son is 7, my daughter is 5, so work-life balance is a big thing for me. But I'm dropping them off at school, and I walk in and drop them off. I'm gonna do that as long as they let me. And how many people are on their phone driving through the line to drop their kids off? So the kids are getting out of the car and going in, and they're still on the phone. And then they're leaving. Sometimes I'm surprised they get out of the car before they take off, and they're still on the phone. How well do you drive through a school zone with this on your head? So where's the balance? But is that balance working for them, or is it not? What are changes in modern society that lead to us to worry about work-life conflict?
Technological advancements.
Technology. I can be at my kid's soccer game, and I can be doing work. Am I really at the soccer game?
I was thinking more about adapting to what's new, right? If you don't have those skills.
Okay. And so your work, what you can do for a living has to change or has to update in order to keep up with skills. What else?
If you love what you do, then how fabulous is it that you have it right here? You know, you can take it. You can take your laptop with you and go to a coffee shop.
That's great, isn't it? And so our work is flexible too. So I can go to the coffee shop, I can go to Panera, I can go home, I can go to work, and I can get everything done there. So it does give me some flexibility, which allows me to move that balance, to balance a little bit differently. Great. What else?
You know, one of the first things I noticed about painting is the kind of the fight between the old world feel of the room and the very contemporary desk. And so as you're talking, I'm thinking about how my dad worked and how we work, and how different that is, kind of the old world style of working, which was basically to hate your job and to work, 1,000 hours a day. And the way we work, which is we love what we do, in our society now we have more choices to do what we love to do. And it's a very different work world, I think, for us.
That's true. And I've talked to executives, and they've talked about work-life balance type issues with me. And one thing they say is, I work 80 hours a week, but that doesn't mean I don't love my family. In fact, I work because I love my family. I want them to live a certain lifestyle. I want to provide for them. And so I am showing my support of my family by working. And so again, it comes to that quality versus quantity. And I think the conflict there arises when I don't then show that to my kids. My kids don't recognize that. Or my wife doesn't recognize that because I'm always at work. But I'm doing it because of this. But they don't know that. And so maybe communication. There's no phone.
I don't follow that assumption back there that the people used to hate what they do and the people now love what they do. I think more people hate what they do today than hated what they did when I was a young man. It's a very unsatisfactory world. Oh, there are more people unhappy at the work today that I ran into than I remember years ago.
Well, one also thing, a change in society is we're more likely to complain about it now too.
That could be.
And so before I may have hated it, but maybe I'd complain to my family over dinner, but I didn't complain to my coworkers because it didn't fit the culture. And
Well,
so now it's more acceptable.
maybe you also assumed that that's the way it had to be,
That's true.
so you didn't challenge it.
I didn't know
Just
any
accepted it.
Yeah.
Expectations for your job were different. But I do think, looking in hindsight, I think people sometimes had a more clear, a set point when they walked in the door, their job was over, and then they just focused on the family. And now we bring our job home with us. Because of the technology, we can do the work. And so we don't ever just turn work off. Work goes with us everywhere.
Yeah.
But aren't they talking about a certain class there? The ones who bring it home with them are the middle class, upperly mobile. Does the guy who's working in the garage, does he bring his work home with him? I don't know.
Chicken factory.
Well,
Factory, a chicken factory over there on Main Street, does he bring his work home with him? I mean, they're talking about the upwardly mobile people, and that's not the majority of the population.
well, think about the different socioeconomic status. At the lower socioeconomic status level, the way this may play out is I leave my one job to go to my second job.
Yes.
So I don't get to take my work home with me. I don't have that opportunity.
True.
And so because of that, I'm not home for my kids, I can't help them do their homework. And in modern society, can we typically survive on one salary for a family? It's hard. You know, historically, there was one breadwinner, and that person could provide enough money to maintain X lifestyle. Now, especially if I want to be middle class or higher in lifestyle, I can't survive on one salary. And because of that, there's an increased opportunity for conflict. Now, hopefully we love what we do. And if we do, then we can instill that. And if we can also, you know, you can come home and you can pick up the kids from school, help them do the homework, put them to bed, and then you can go back to work. So we might have that opportunity. But if I'm going back out to the chicken plant afterwards, am I going to have an opportunity to come home in between? Am I not? It comes down to time and money, doesn't everything? So I only have so much time, and I only have so many resources. I'm calling it money because money buys all the other resources. But time and money. If I can figure out the balance between those two, and I can look at the quality versus quantity idea, where is it going to play out? A student of mine just recently completed a study. We submitted it for publication. It hasn't been accepted yet, but it's under review. And in the study, we looked at work-life values. And so we used a measure that was developed by another previous student of mine. And it looked at the way you value 4 aspects of your life. And we said you have your work, you have family, you have yourself, which is a catch-all category. And then we put in religion. And religion was very broadly defined, and it was believing in something larger than yourself. So it's more of a spirituality / religious type category. And we said, okay, you have all of these values. And one thing we found in this study was we looked at the relationship between stress and how much you value work. And we found that the more you value work, the more you self-reported being anxious and depressed. However, we also measured optimism, which is essentially is the glass half full or half empty. And you do have a central state towards which one do you view or the other, but you can change it some. And looking at this, we found that for optimistic individuals, that relationship went away. If I'm optimistic and I also valued work, then I did not have the anxiety and depression. Whereas if I was pessimistic and I valued work, then I had this issue. There's another study, one that I didn't do, but it was a very good study, that came out that looked at why this occurs. Where does this stress come from? And it actually found that people in general have more stress if they feel that their family is interfering with their work than if they feel if their work is interfering with their family. I thought that was kind of a counterintuitive finding. But when you go in there and you look at the value part, and this study did not have how much do you value work versus how much do you value your family. I'm thinking what it's saying is my family may be interfering with my work, and for those who are high in family value and high in work value, what we're saying is I can't provide for my family because I have all this work stuff going on, and because I have all this work stuff going on, I can't provide for my family, and then I can't put all this effort into work, and so it's a cycle, kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy for stress, and gotta step back, glass is half full, and really believe it, and move into it. It's really hard to believe, especially when things are going down. Think about 2008, 2009 with the economy. Even people who had steady jobs and didn't have an issue felt very pessimistic. But the stock market just recently hit a record. Why? We're starting to rebound. We're starting to feel a little bit more optimistic. But if you talk to a lot of people, though, they aren't feeling it. They're thinking, it's not tangible. It's going to change again. I'm not sure. I'm not confident in this. And it's all what we see. And if we choose to see it one way, we'll see it that way. Especially if it's negative. If we choose to see it positive, other people, yeah, they can bring us down. But you got to try to bounce back.